Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello and welcome to episode 170 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host, and with me, as always, is the newly found heel, Darick Oswald. Darick, how is the heel turn?
It's lovely. You know, I was just meeting my Make-A-Wish Foundation kids before we started recording, and they kept saying like, hey, is it going to be a good podcast? And I just kept my mouth shut. I said, oh, of course, just like always, knowing that I was just going to break their hearts. And yeah, honestly, the writing, the hints have been there for a long time. You know, I've been meeting with these kids over and over and over again, and then they keep dying, and everyone just thought it was the illness and didn't suspect me one bit, but really I was the heel all along.
Christ.
So anyway, look, this might turn into a flesh and wrestling
Mania, yeah.
Flesh and Mania podcast, but in my defense, we all cannot deny that Flesh and Blood is wrestling coded anyway, so it is
Right.
what it is. If you're wondering why I'm on this kick and why Logan's talking about it, after the Foster stuff and so forth, I took Stark as a surprise to the Elimination Chamber event in Toronto because he's been awesome through the entire thing, but he also willingly gave up his room, and he's been just he's been great.
Kid. Yeah,
he's a good kid anyway, but like he's at that age, he's hitting those preteens, and we've already seen like the signs of, you know, the testosterone and the puberty kicking in, but you know, he did not have a heel turn, and so I last minute just was like, hey, I wanted to take him anyway, so we're just gonna do it. Got up, drove all the way there. It took forever. I made it even with my carcolepsy driving back after the event. Took me like 7 hours or whatever, but it is what it is. But he had a blast, and when I say he had a blast, like he's just nonstop talking about it. He got to meet some wrestlers. I posted on BlueSky if you want to see some of the photos that we took with him. He has, in many ways, it's always interesting because like he has reinvigorated my love of wrestling, because I watched it like, you know, with my family when I was growing up. Kind of fell out of it, and then I've started watching it again because he was interested, and it's just like between him and Monroe, sometimes you just have to view things through youthful eyes to really appreciate it again, and they are both locked in. So yeah,
it's only 5 hours and 3 minutes from Lansing to Toronto
for a normal human. Yeah. But the show got over at roughly 11, and I got home at 7 a.m. because I have to stop several times. And also there was some pretty heavy traffic leaving the show, obviously. So there is that too. But
fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you guys had a good time. And
yeah, I keep telling Stark real quick, he doesn't know how awesome it will be that for the rest of his life that he can say, like, I was there
when Cena turned.
Like,
that is,
keep telling him.
That's a thing. And that's a pretty incredible spot for the wrestling fans out there. You know what we're talking about. For anybody who's not wrestling coded as Flesh and Blood is or anything else, John Cena for basically his entire career, so 20 plus years, has been a face, so a good guy. There have been plans a couple of times to turn him heel and make him a bad guy, but Cena has basically said they said no to it earlier in his career because of, you know, the Make-A-Wish stuff and all the other like things that John Cena, who is legitimately, you know, a caring human being when it comes to those types of things, he was like, I would stop all of it and I would just invert everything. And so eventually WWE was like, I think we have enough bad will right now, which has been kind of endemic for them for what year is this? 50 years. So they decided to not take their one true white meat baby face that has stayed somehow over all this time and turn him. And so it finally happened where they just said, you know what? It's your last year. All right. Heel Cena it is.
Well,
And
we keep saying they. There is also a part of me. So the other bit, if you're not wrestling coded, this, like, he announced this is his last year wrestling, right? Like, this is essentially his retirement tour. And so at the start of the year, there was a lot of people, you know, saying, you know, you deserve it. We miss you. Like, he's just had nothing but goodwill because everyone's just so, like, happy for him. And he's supposed to be trying to, like, set the record and get the, you know, 17th world title to break Ric Flair's record. And so it just starts, like, he's always had that babyface goodwill anyway, but now it just starts even better. Because even when he's been a good guy all this time, like, he's had his, like, you know, you suck or Cena sucks chance because people were just tired of him being a good guy.
Right.
But then, you know, at this point, it's one of those, like, you never know what you're missing until it's almost gone. So everybody's just been so happy. But I deep down think that when he announced this, he said, look, because I'm on my way out and, like, you know, this is a one way or the other, a short-term window. Like, let me do the thing that I've never been able to do. And also, he's been acting now, right? So, like, this is his opportunity to do additional character work. Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, let's be honest, like, that still image of, like, his face when he's turning is one of those things that will be, like, pop culture, you know,
he
memes,
does the same
moments
thing
before disaster.
Yeah, he does the same face in Suicide Squad when he's about ready to kill Rick Flag. Like, that's the same face where he's just like, all right, time to break bad. And I like I said, I thought that it was super well done. Also, for basically the first time, actually I think the first time ever, a loud and proud F-bomb on a WWE broadcast, and I was just like, oh, okay, that's new, that's different,
and from the
baby face,
the current white meat baby face, like,
yeah, I mean, that's a good way to get over, is just be, I mean, they're firmly running back the, you know, establishment versus anti-establishment angle, which has been done a million times, but every time if they find new ways to do it that are good, it works.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We're not a wrestling podcast, I promise you. We're not switching formats.
So anyway, Elimination Chamber, the women's one was won by Kiss of Death, right? Somebody put
Bianca
it
Belair,
on the chain, and
somebody,
and then they flicked the Kiss of Death.
yep, they sure did. I can't think of anybody else that
Oblivion.
Liv Morgan
eliminated Bailey with the Oblivion.
Yep, that's a thing. We haven't seen. Let me think here. We haven't seen a go to sleep. We haven't seen an attitude adjustment. We haven't seen a who else was in that match? A Claymore kick. We haven't seen a fuck Logan Paul. We haven't seen
his entire set is now just you know, stolen cowboy shit. That's what I call it.
Yeah, basically he's just doing
Hangman Adam Page. Yeah,
which I hope that Hangman leaves AEW, comes to WWE to just beat the shit out of Logan Paul.
Squashes him.
That'd be pretty funny. But yeah, Flesh and Blood is incredibly wrestling coded because James White is a giant wrestling fan. So you find things like, you find like the deep cuts, like Cranial Crush is a deep cut, because there was a wrestler called Crush, and his finishing move was to crush people's skulls and pick them up and slam them down. He called it the Cranial Crush. Then, you know, you obviously have the Choke Slam, Razor's Edge, tributes to Demolition and Legion of Doom. These are all wrestling references.
What if we get a Riptide specialization that's like Drill Shot, but they call it the Fisherman's Driver?
That'd be pretty good.
That'd be a good one.
That'd be pretty good. There's a lot of opportunity because
it really is.
If they could figure out a way to work it into the pirate set, because of Kairi Sane, the Insane Elbow would be a fun one. So yeah, there's a backstab. The Backstabber is a very popular. Yep, that's another
Backstabber.
popular one.
We got to see that at
Got to see a Backstabber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we need a mechanologist code breaker. That's what we need.
We do need a code breaker. That's true.
So anyway, if you're listening, anyone from LSS, James included, if you are in the States and want to go watch wrestling with Logan and I, let us know.
We'll take you. Yeah, not a problem.
We will tear the house down.
Fucking A, we will. Let's actually talk about Flesh and Blood for at least a little bit, though, because it's like what we cover. But you did not do anything in Flesh and Blood this week.
No, I am still. So like I said, the good news is, this week is the first week that Doa is going to be on the Tuesday schedule, but I still sadly will not be able to go to the Armory this week. It'll be starting next week because I have parent teacher conferences this week. So tomorrow is Monroe's and then Starks's on Wednesday, like right after I get out of work, so I won't be able to make it.
Yep. I played a couple of rounds in my Armory. I was going to watch basketball with some friends at a bar, but I had a couple hour window, and Armory starts at 6, game started at 8, so it's like I can get a couple wins in. I'll just play Aurora or like an aggro deck, and won my 2 rounds and then dipped. Just kind of making sure I don't accumulate any rust is kind of the thing. And I still have not I've not really locked in what I want to be playing at Pro Tour. I have it narrowed down a bit, but I don't have it locked in at all. But I'm definitely working on about 3 deck lists right now and have some ideas on each that are a little off the board for most people's what they're doing. So we'll see. What my biggest problem right now is I need to fucking draft the Hunted, and you can't get that shit. Like, period. So without paying exorbitant prices to get sealed product.
It is difficult to find, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm going to be way behind in Limited, which is not what I expected. I felt like I'd figure out a way to get ahead in Limited or pull even in Limited somehow just by cycling through draft after draft, like buying cases and just hosting draft camps and just blasting through draft after draft after draft. And instead, I've just been able to work on CC the whole time because I can't draft. So there's some issues there. I guess it does free up the money I was going to spend on cases of the Hunted to go see Wu-Tang Clan's final tour in Chicago. So that's now on my radar all of a sudden, as the Cubs play the Cardinals on Sunday at Wrigley at 1:10, and then Monday night's the Wu-Tang show. So it's a nice little weekend lead in. So I could go to Chicago on like Saturday, watch baseball Saturday, Sunday, leave Friday after work, go watch baseball Saturday, Sunday, go watch Wu-Tang Clan on Monday, drive home the next day. And that would be about perfect, especially since that Friday is the 4th. So that's a consideration right now, is just go, because I'm a giant Wu-Tang fan. I think everybody knows that by now, and I haven't seen them live since 1996, which is almost 30 years ago. So it's probably time to just go back one more time. But we'll see. It's not an expensive ticket for the cheap tickets, but I don't do cheap tickets. So
yeah, that's fair.
It'll be like $400 or something like that for what I want. But like I said, we'll see. Obviously there's still London to talk about and Vegas, but this is after all those, just before Gen Con. RTN season did finish up this past weekend. You had Aurora taking the week with 18 wins, which just blasted everybody. Turns out with no Viserai to punish them, pretty good. Pretty good. So 18 Aurora wins. Zen and Syndra were each in with 8. So quite the discrepancy there. Zen did pick up enough to ascend to the top of the Living Legend leaderboard, though. So now you have Zen sitting at the tippy top, not far away at all, like 40 points away. So one major win puts him over.
Right.
But there's a lot of representation, which is nice to see. There were 20 some odd heroes again represented. If I remember the graphic right, and I think I have it pulled up still. I do. It is the final count is Viserai had 62 wins before hitting the glue factory. Rora had 60, New had 53, Syndra had 50. Then there's this big gap, and you go to Prism at 31, Arachne Marionette at 26, Enigma at 23, Zen at 22, Vinset at 19, and then the next drop off happens to Dash.io at 11. And then, but you have not many heroes that didn't show up. Betsy did not get a single win, and Olympia didn't get a single win. I think everybody else is on the
Huntsman got one?
Looking. No, Huntsman did not. Nope.
I was gonna say I don't remember seeing that because that's something I would have remembered.
There was one Bravo, one Levia, one Acilio at the bottom, and then the 2s were Phi and Riptide. And then Kasai had 3, and then everybody else was 5+. So no Arachne Huntsman either. I forgot. Everybody forgets he exists. Slipped through the cracks at 7 though. So, that's not nothing.
It's not nothing.
And Slippy's pretty dangerous, especially if other assassin representation starts to fade away, and Slippy's ability just kind of is what Slippy's ability is without getting punished on the opposite end. Oh, it's pretty good. We always talked about, they'll never print Solitary Confinement as a CC legal hero, and that's close.
It's close.
It's not exactly right, but it's close. So yeah, this is pretty much the meta for London. The only change really would be if Zen picks up a calling win. I think that would send him over. And then, at that point, we could readjust, but I don't know that Zen is the play for the Pro Tour. And I wouldn't expect Zen going away to change much. Because everybody kind of understands that the aggro decks are the aggro decks, and they're going to do their thing and go burr.
Mm-hmm.
And either you are trying to go burr faster, or you are trying to go burr as fast with disrupting them, or you are trying to just majorly disrupt them. Those are kind of the points that you have. This is why Prism is very good right now.
Yeah, I guess I was gonna say, to me it was a you either go burr or you go bonk.
Burr and bonk.
That's what I keep thinking of. I don't think there's a hero that exists to just do like the last stage, because we don't have anybody who's like old him level.
No.
Or you know what I mean? So to me it's you still have to be aggressive, but with disruption to be the other piece of it, right?
Which is why I think Prism is good.
And
sadly,
personally, I believe that even with like the Guardians, because I think that the Guardians that are going to do well are really going to do so on the back of like still swinging, but also just disrupting so that the swing backs aren't as big, right? Like if you can hit with your spinals, whether you're Victor or Bravo or Jarl, like if you can connect with a spinal, it's still really good in this meta. You know what I mean?
Yep, it sure is. So yeah, and Victor doesn't have as many of the disruptive tools because there's no Crippling Crush, no Starstruck. So
yeah, those two are big. And if I'm being honest, I still think a lot of people underestimate how important just like the activatable dominate is, because even your cards like Crush the Weak is outstanding in the current meta, but it's partially outstanding because of Bravo being able to give it dominate. But all of that being said, Victor, he can still run Spinal, and even without the dominate, a lot of the aggro decks just really don't want to block right now, so it puts some pressure there. He still has Terra Sunder, he still has Pummel, still has a number of other options. It's just I truly think that it's either you are going Burr or you are going Bonk, which is like stunning them but dealing damage, right? Like in my mind. So
yeah, no, I think you're right. It just, a Guardian could end up doing well. A Guardian can just also get blasted. So it's really, Victor's whole thing is that he needs to draw his trounces. And that spins the game really hard in Victor's direction. And if there's no time to draw the trounces, you get cooked.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that is a fair point, right? If you're thinking about playing any of the Guardians or the more disruptive assassin builds, I am of the opinion that you have to have almost like a critical mass of disruption so that you're not going too many turns without it. Because I'm not saying you need it like on the first turn, but if you go, I would say 3 turns without any sort of major disruption, you're just kind of asking to lose, because they might take, even if they have the turn 0, like that might be a setup, then they'll take like 1 turn off and then they're going to go Burr, right? Like and even if that doesn't kill you, you'll just be so far behind. Because the thing with the disruptive classes, whether it's Guardian or Assassin or whatever, is that you still need health as a resource to do your disruption, because ultimately you're going to have to take some damage to be able to swing back with your disruption. And then at that point, if you can always outpace them, your damage plus disruption being greater than what they're swinging back, you're fine. But if you're in too big of a deficit early, then that, becomes not a game plan that is viable, but also just blocking out isn't viable. And now you're just soft locked. So you need a critical mass so that you can hit it early enough that you don't fall too far behind.
Yeah, your typical Syndra turns are between 13 and 17 damage without mass triggers, with no help. It's just this much. And if you can't weather those, then you lose.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying I think three's the magic number, because you can't like take 2 of those and then be staring down because on that third one, like I said, if you're trying to keep even a 3-card hand to be able to do your disruption, it might be pitch for an attack plus a pummel or whatever with your tunic trigger. You still have to take that third wave, right? So if you take 2 and then you're taking the third to set it up, like you're probably too far behind at that point. So you need a critical mass so that you're finding it fast enough.
Yeah, you'd be much happier if the deck was a lot of tall attacks than a bunch of head jabs, because then at least you can unmovable and cover it up or whatever. And then your other issue is that the ninjas can actually play pretty good defense reactions into you. And like, you still kind of eat shit a little bit. Like, Loyalty Beyond the Grave, real good. Turns out when it plus a card from hand still covers up the 9 from a Spinal, so that you don't get crushed, and then you can exile this, draw a card, and go about your merry way of presenting 17 or whatever.
Yeah.
That's pretty huge. I mean, those swing turns are dumb when they happen. In other news, it's skirmish season in 2 weeks. So we are in the lightning fast turn times for our different seasons right now. So skirmish season hits, and then I think 2 weeks after skirmish season ends, or not 2, maybe 3, is when ProQuest season starts again. And then less than a month after ProQuest season ends is Nationals. So it is rapid fire right now. And in between all that is Pro Tour London, in case anybody's wondering. So as it goes, skirmish season, Pro Tour London. The week after Pro Tour London is when ProQuest season starts for Singapore. And yeah, the train is definitely not stopping anytime soon when it comes to those types of events. So it's coming quickly. So there'll be a lot going on here shortly. Premier Play. As far as like they're doing a pretty good job of not putting major events in the middle of these seasons so that the seasons can breathe, you know, like you have, if you would have put multiple callings during ProQuest season or RTN season, that would have been pretty horrible, but luckily they did not, you know, they did it right and gave those seasons time to breathe, which was nice. We also got the Aurora Armory deck list. It's weird because it only has 2 copies of Arc Lightning in it, which I guess there was only 1 red in the Ledger or whatever in the Azalea one, so it's not that shocking. No, pun definitely not intended because I'm not that fucking guy. But you're that guy. I know. I see the smirk on your face. You are that guy.
I was just thinking to myself, it might not be that shocking. It's probably like 2/3 as shocking.
Oh my God, fuck off. I didn't think I left an opening.
And yet
I regret everything. Looking at the card list, so Shock Frock, when it comes to the equipment, I think is the one that's a thing for Aurora. Mainly because it's an action with Go Again stapled to it. So it's extra damage from your Arc Lightning turns, which again is a thing. And it's a free swing with Starfall at that point. So it's basically 3 damage on the Arc Lightning turn, plus it's Battle Worn, so it blocks for 1. So basically you're getting 4 damage out of it.
And if you time it up right. Yeah, and that's like in all likelihood bare minimum, right?
Right.
You know, when you factor in that, like, yeah, it could be a free Starfall, but that, you know, +1 could also be, you know, something more relevant. I don't know who's actually paying for stuff in their decks, but not me. But if you were,
about the only thing that's getting paid for in an Aurora deck is Starfall. That's about it. So
yeah, I was trying to think. I was like, well, you know, even in Lightning Strikes, you're not paying for those. So I guess
no, it's a bunch of zeros, but Starfall. Otherwise, Cap of Quick Thinking, I think, is a thing maybe for Acilio. That one is a no block headpiece. Lightning equipment is instant. You destroy it. If you'd be dealt damage by a source an opponent controls this turn, you may discard an instant to a card to prevent 1 damage that and draw a card.
So first of all, I like that. But before I forget, I knew I was forgetting something. At least in mine, I was still running Eclectic Magnetism. I knew there was something that I would pay for.
The fuck does that card even do?
That's the 1 for 5 that blocks for 3. When it attacks, you can play a non-attack action. This chain link as though it were an instant.
Oh, yeah, it costs resources. I don't do that.
I was looking through my Aurora list. It's literally the only. It's literally the only thing that costs resources.
Yep, that sounds right.
Yep. I was like, I know there's one. Damn it.
The other, kind of the other card worth talking about is Skizix, Skizix is a magic card. Skizik is the Flesh and Blood card, but you know. And Skyward Serenade. So Skizik is a 0 for 3. If this has Go Again, it gets +1, so it's a 0 for 4. If it has Go Again, so you basically have to have an Embodiment of Lightning hanging around, or have played an Arc Lightning in front of it.
Or a Captain's Call, which is at least in the Armory list. I don't encourage people to run it, but
I don't think that's a good idea.
I'm just saying.
It's there.
It's there.
The The other one is Skyward Serenade. It's a 0 cost lightning rune blade action, yellow, so yellow pitch, 2 block. We don't block with shit. Choose to create an embodiment of lightning token. Search your deck for Skizik, banish it, then shuffle. You may play it again this turn. Your next attack this turn gets +1. It has go again natively. So when you think about this card and going and getting, like, fetching a Skizik, so you'd be choosing, if you didn't already have an embodiment of lightning, you'd be choosing embodiment of lightning Skizik, so it would have the go again and the +1. Then so it'd be a 0/4. Otherwise, if you have it in hand, you can just do the +1, so make it a 0/5 go again. But this still strikes me as a Briar card.
I mean, maybe, but I look at this and I think that this card is like really good if you are running the Skizik, obviously, because at a minimum, like you were saying, this is like a 0/4 because you're going to go get the Skizik and you're going to give it the go again. But that's a 0/4 with a yellow pitch, right? Like this card pitches for yellow, which is a pretty big deal. It's also itself like a lightning rune blade action, so it turns on everything else you want. Following an arc lightning, this also gives you the extra damage because it has go again, and then you get the extra damage for the Skizik because that'll have go again from the embodiment, and
well,
so
it
on
have go
and
again
so
from the arc lightning. So you can just give it +1. And...
Yeah. So you if you've played the arc lightning and then you play this, you could also just give it the +1. There's all sorts of, like, I think neat things about this card. And like I can see what you're saying about like it feels like a Briar card, and it would have been playable there because it is just Lightning Rune Blade, right? It's not an Aurora specialization. My big thing though is that it just feels like Cheerios Briar, because like outside,
a little bit.
The problem is like all of the cool like interplay still happens in Aurora because of Arc Lightning, right? So like it would work in Briar, but to me, I don't know, it feels still very...
in Briar, the play would be like this Skizik, attack with the Skizik, Nimbleism, another embodiment, and then Snatch behind it. And, you know, you get to basically pod race a bit more with Briar, I think, with this card. And because it allows you to create multiple embodiments in a turn. But Briar also just doesn't have Arc Lightning, because thank God it's an Aurora specialization, because Arc Lightning and Briar, I think, would be absolutely busted even in LL. Like, it would make Briar even more of a menace. So
thinking about this card, like if you already have the embodiment, like I know that Skizik gets that +1, but there's also the part of me that says like you still go fetch your Skizik because it's just like a free chain ender.
Yeah, right.
But I really like the idea of like you go get your Skizik and you give your next thing +1, and then you play your Snatch for 5 with go again.
That's not bad.
It's not bad.
So I think that Skyward Serenade is kind of the glue for all of this, and also that is the other card that will 1000% see play in Aurora. So if you are playing Aurora,
I was right. See, you would if when you were like, well, it would already have go again from the Arc Lightning, and my initial thought was that I thought Arc Lightning gives it to the next action period, not next attack action, and it does. So if you Arc Lightning first and then you Skyward, technically the Skyward is eating that part of the go again.
No, you would just play Skyward first and then play Arc Lightning. And then...
Yeah, but then you lose the damage on the go again for the Skyward, and I'm greedy.
I mean, it depends. It basically depends on if they're presenting AB or not.
Even if they're presenting AB, if I make them pitch for that, then that's one... Like, maybe that's the thing. I get them to pitch for that one AB, because they were going to pitch for the other ones anyway. But it's a card out of hand, and now I'm sending the physical. I don't know. My point is, it's good. That's my point.
Yeah,
Skyward Serenade,
I think it's very good.
Is fun.
Yeah, I think it's very good. So I'm all about that card. Like I said, that and the Frock specifically for Aurora, but the Kappa Quick Thinking strikes me as an Acilio card. Because it's not once, you get to do it for this turn. So they keep every damage source allows you to discard an instant and draw a card and prevent one, which again for Rosilio, probably pretty good. Let you cycle through some shit to go find what you need.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know enough about piloting Rosilio to know.
I don't think anybody else does either,
is.
quite honestly. The other ones are just kind of in that like okay category.
I mean, it looks like a decent enough armory deck. Just
yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's a good training wheels deck for sure. Art wise, Written in the Stars, I think is one of my favorite arts I've seen in quite some time. It's just pretty. That should be a cold foil.
I'm sure it will be at some point.
Probably. And
probably
$1 billion.
In a judge pack or a gem pack, one of the two.
A gem, yeah, something like that. Anything
just real
else?
Quick.
Go for it.
You know, I'm still on the Skyward Serenade thing. I also want to give a shout out to the devs because obviously when you think about like the most common play pattern for this card, it will be like finding your Skizzik, but I just wanted to give them the shout out for making this still seem like a reasonable card to have in hand when you might be out of Skizziks in your deck, right? The fact that it does still pitch for 2 and you could very well want to both create embodiment and give your next attack +1 in a turn.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's not great, but you know, I was just joking earlier about like the captain's call thing, but you know, worst case scenario, it's still a captain's call. That I don't know. It's just a good safety net of design, right? Where if you've got something that's focused on finding something else, because I was thinking about the Jarl Armory deck, right? Where we have a similar situation with the Mangle. And you know, that's not that card's still, you know, not playable, but at least in that situation, when you can't go get the Mangle, it feels significantly worse. Whereas this one, it's obviously not ideal, but I do feel like you're still finding uses, or you know, you're going to be able to wiggle more value out of this one. I don't know. I just really like this card.
No, I think it's very good, and I think that it is well designed, and I also feel like it's a it's the card. You know how every one of the armory decks so far has kind of had the card that you get the armory deck for. This one seems to have multiple, which is kind of cool. And the Skyward Serenade Skizzik package potentially, but then the Shock Frock as well, I think again is a good chess slot. A lot of them play Aether Ironweave already, and this is just basically Aether Ironweave and extra damage because you really never need the 2 resources, you just need 1. And it doesn't require, the requirement's actually a little bit easier to hit in Aurora of just having played a lightning card. So that's actually easier to do than turning on Aether Ironweave. So it just is an easy slot in too. So, which makes me sad because I have a cold foil Aether Ironweave and I don't have cold foil whatever the fuck this is because it doesn't exist yet. Anything else about the Aurora Armory deck?
I just really want to talk about Skyward Serenade some more. No, I'm
fine. I mean, I'm okay with that. It's got legs. It's got stuff going on.
It does have legs, 2 of them, in fact. Ramza did a great job with the art. So,
and the number of legs making him correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Not 2 left feet.
Is there feet on main again, or no? They're booted.
No, these are booted.
Sad. We just didn't go feet. If they would have gone feet, Swarty would have been the artist for it. So, moving on. It's a slow week. Didn't have a whole lot going on, so I just put in there. It's time for Flesh and Blood hot takes, and gave each of us a hot take. Charmer, what's your hot take?
My hot take is that despite this being an aggro meta, I think a defensive deck, whether it's Illusionist or Guardian, is going to win the Pro Tour.
It's a pretty hot take. Because historically speaking, Guardian players can't draft.
Yeah, that is true. However, there are, the likes of, your Michael Fangs, for example, that I think could pull it off. I just think,
yeah.
I stand by what I said before. I still think Enigma is stronger than it looks. I think Prism is definitely stronger than it looks. I know it's an aggressive meta, but the good, like really good pilots, people significantly smarter than me, have always been able to pilot well into those fields. Like, I think about way early days, if you're one of the new players, you might not remember when Chain was everywhere and it was like a surefire thing. Chain was going to win the first big event, and then it was won by Prism, because somebody just, again, knew how to pilot the deck into the aggro.
Also
that
was directly for Chain.
Sure, but like, you could look at this field and say, okay, if I tech for Ninja, whether that's Syndra, Zen, whatever, you're probably in a pretty good spot, right? Yeah. I just that's my hot take. I feel like there's a defensive run in here.
Okay. I mean, and I think that's reasonable. I know that there are definitely some of those more defensive minded or pseudo disruptive, lots of burst damage decks that are difficult for the aggro decks to navigate, Vincent being one of them. It's very hard to beat Vincent. It's very hard to beat Prism. Prism feels unwinnable, honestly. Vincent feels winnable, but they have to miss. And that never feels good, relying on your opponent's deck to brick. Like, you'd like more agency than that. But I could definitely see a defensive minded deck winning. That wouldn't surprise me. Mine is a pretty simple one. I think it was a mistake to stop printing supplemental sets.
Oh man, that is a hot take.
I feel like we've given the expansion slot enough air to breathe now to see what it is, and I don't think it works. I don't think it works well enough. And I think that we need the supplemental sets to get enough cards into the ecosystem quick enough when it comes to things like Shelter from the Storm or Warmongers or whatever it is, where you can print them in this thing instead, that has boosters to open, where it's a lot more it's more prone to just, being opened with a lower, it's a lower set of cards. And if people are, again, I hate to say this, but you open more packs drafting. That much is true. Draft sets were always bigger than the supplemental sets. And it was always a mistake to not open the shit out of the supplemental sets. You should have just been blasting open the supplemental sets. And that's proven out now. Like, you should have done it with...
That's exactly why, that's why I'm doing that. Because I think, personally, I understand your take, but I feel like this is revisionist history because of current circumstances. Because how many times did we say, Everfest has good stuff in it, and it doesn't matter how much you say it, people weren't opening it, right? There's a reason the Unlimited never saw the light of day for that, because people still weren't opening it, even though now looking back, there's a lot of good stuff in that. And I still feel the same way about Dynasty. I think Dynasty is a much better set than people gave it credit for.
Agreed.
And I think that, and even now, I can still find Dust Till Dawn on shelves when I can't find some other stuff.
And you should buy it.
It's one of those things where, I hear what you're saying, and it's one of those things where, in theory, it sounds good, but in practice still won't work. And I think that's why they stopped, because I think that they were at that same thing where they're like, hey, we're going to put this stuff in, and then nobody's buying it. And then they're like, okay, well, if we're trying to move things around, then we'll just put it in the sets that they are buying, so that at least they're getting something, right?
So let's bring this back to a more consumer appeal product. Print the fucking archive packs.
Okay, I don't disagree with
ship
you
them
there.
as like their supplemental sets.
Okay, I don't disagree with you there. But
big also include new cards in them. I think that you don't do them as purely reprints.
What I am reserving my judgment, because like all things with Flesh and Blood, usually what happens is we arrive at some sort of conclusion and then we wait 3 to 6 months, and then that's exactly what happens. And so given that it was slated for earlier and then it was pushed back, and given the way things have been going, I have a suspicion that when we get this like Guardian Mastery set, it's essentially going to be what you're talking about. Now it'll be Guardian focused, but I think that when we get these class mastery sets, these will be essentially the mix of here's your new stuff and the greatest hits, and it will essentially be the supplementals without it being the supplementals. Now that's just my theory. I have nothing to prove that, but I think that it would make the most sense given what we've seen if that was the direction we were headed.
Sure. I don't disagree with that. The problem is a Guardian coded mastery set is not going to have Codex of Frailty in it. And that's rough. The Assassin one will. Maybe.
Well, maybe it will. Maybe the Guardian set will still have an expansion slot.
That'd be weird.
And we'll get an alternate art version of Codex the same way we get an alternate art CNC. The problem is that even if it has Codex, it doesn't matter like what kind it is. It will still be expensive unless they print it as a common.
No,
right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, is we have to set the reasonable expectations. And when we set the reasonable expectations, even if they give us Guardian Mastery and then the expansion slot is really just the greatest hits, no new stuff for classes other than Guardian, but all of your quote unquote expansion slots for that set are stuff that, you know, people have wanted for whatever, they'll still be expensive. Like that's what we have learned. We are at a point, and again, it's growing pains and it's whatever, but I just think that we are at a point right now where without just straight printing it into the ground and devaluing their own product, they've got themselves in a position where they can't print it fast enough to satisfy the demand at the same pace that the game has been growing. Like, we are just experiencing, in my opinion, the second biggest growth of the game ever. Beyond like when it had its first initial run. Might even be bigger than that.
I think it's bigger than that.
When you factor in the global market and the Pacific and everything. And with that, you know, if you're trying to keep up, I just don't think you can do it fast enough unless you are printing to the point where, and I've seen it with other games, like, yeah, you can keep up. But then what's going to happen is then your regular set boxes are going to be like $40 and you'll go back to nobody's opening anything, right? So, I
mean, the way they print cards and they keep the hype cycle going and make everything always feel relevant, I don't think that part of it would ever happen. I do think you would run the risk of potentially devaluing your older sets, but none of those are on the shelf anyway. They're all gone. Unless it's Monarch. You can buy Monarch anywhere you want.
Well, and so here's what I just want to be clear about, though. When I say like devaluing your product, sorry, I'm imagining the future comments where people are complaining about what I've said in the future because I wasn't articulating what I want to say.
You're still fucking heard about that. You're just...
I will forever be heard about that because reading comprehension is hard. I don't want people to think that what I'm saying is that I care about the dollar values of people's individual collections, because I have been on wax on the show
don't give a shit. Yeah.
Saying that I don't care, I just want to play the game, and that if you want to invest in something like satisfy your gambling like an adult on the stock market,
don't do that.
Don't do that either.
Don't do that either.
But like what I'm saying is like this shouldn't be your retirement portfolio. So when I say devaluing the product, I just mean the perception. there is something that is important to making your product feel in demand, right? Like this is just a business thing. You don't want it to feel like your shelves are littered with whatever. And so like you can say what you want about like the accessibility of other games, but again, we have, or myself anyway, has definitely seen situations where you can go into a store and you can see like 30 different sets of stuff on the shelves that nobody is really buying because people were just not opening it. It was overprinted, overmarketed, overhyped, or when they do print things, they print it so that, you know, there are 2 chase cards in the thing, and if you don't open that, then who cares about anything else? And then, you know, after week 2, everything is, you know, $60 a box or whatever. And I just like, yes, that makes it accessible for players, but it also sends the wrong message. As weird as it sounds, because, and I know because we've been there before, that would get people who don't play this game saying, does anybody even play that game? Whenever I go into a store, it looks like it's always on the shelves. Like, we've been there.
It's annoying.
And it's annoying. And so when I say devalue the product, what I really mean is like the brand. You want your stuff to feel in demand. And like I said, right now we are experiencing growth of the game. It's undeniable. And we can tell it's in demand. And yes, it hurts our wallets in the short term, but long term, it's good for the stability of the game and the community. I know that's really hard to stomach because we all want affordable game pieces, myself included. As somebody who owns 0 shelters right now, like, I feel your pain. I feel your pain, people. But you don't want the reverse. I'm just telling you right now, as somebody who's covered a lot of games that have died, you don't want your stuff to feel like nobody cares or nobody's playing it or nobody wants your product.
Sure. I hear you. I really do. I just think that there is more rope to walk here. And we have not arrived at the solution with the way that the current setup is. It's more that.
Yeah, that's fair. I just trust that we'll get there in, you know,
a couple years,
6 months or whatever, because we always get there. Like,
that's very, I mean, the track record's pretty good.
Yeah, but, you know, before the end of the year, I'll say that, like, before the end of the year, and that's why I'm saying I'm holding out the hope for the mastery set. We'll see what happens there. If not, we'll see what happens, like, by the end of the year. But whenever we've had a pain point, so again, like, if you're newer to the game, you know, you don't have to go back far in our catalog where you can see us complaining about what is now referred to as Fab 1.0, where we would say, hey, you know, everybody wants first edition. And once the first edition stuff is gone, like, Unlimited comes out and then, like, prices drop. Nobody cares. You know, stores are left holding the bag. There was a whole bunch of issues with it.
Aria and Monarch specifically.
You know, it was pretty nuanced or whatever. But like we said, hey, like, they're going to have to take a look at this. And then what do you know? Uprising hits, and it's the start of Fab 2.0, and they addressed the problem, and things got significantly better. Was it perfect? No. I mean, it's never going to be perfect. It's always a moving target, because it's not just that the game changes and the industry changes, but what your players want changes over time as well. Like, the stuff that people wanted when the game launched is not the same as what people wanted today. Is there some things that are the same? Yes, absolutely. Give me the novels. Give me the Netflix show.
Please give me the fucking Lego sets. Give me the.
Right. But you know, what your player base, like, wants long term is not static, right? And so it's never going to be perfect. But what I have just come to realize is that whatever we want, they're probably working. They've probably been working on it for a few months. But even if we say, like, hey, we want this now, then they start working on it, and then we just have to wait for them to deliver. It doesn't happen overnight. So I just trust.
No, again, the track record's pretty good, and there haven't been a ton of real misses. There have been potentially missed opportunities, but not a lot of misses, which are not the same thing. A miss is when you print something that you just fucking shouldn't have. Like, it's
and even when you have a miss, they correct pretty quickly.
They course correct quickly.
You know, I still don't personally think it was a true miss, because I think that they learned a lot about the experience.
Bright
but
lights.
The closest thing that you can say would have been a miss, in my opinion, would have been Bright Lights.
Yep.
And I agree. Right after that, like we got heavy hitters, which was like pretty universally loved.
Yeah.
So,
although Olympia and Betsy still suck, it is what it is. Let's set up some listener questions quick. But what
I was gonna say, I just can't wait for Betsy to get the glow up when the mastery set comes out. That's what I am expecting. That's my hot take. Betsy will be playable post
only if her weapon finally shows up and it's a log, and a log is not a gun. Just want to make sure. Oh god, if they make a gun log though, man, then the log is a gun.
What if instead of a log we get like a log truck, like it's Final Destination 2, and she just drops the truck on you?
Anytime I'm driving and I make aggressive like moves to not be behind a truck carrying like telephone poles, and the people I'm riding with are like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, that's a Final Destination truck. I want no part of that.
Yeah, nope. I used to be the same way, but recent events have got me like craving to drive behind the truck. Them.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that. Let's set up some listener questions. I only got a few of them here, and then we'll get out of here. The first one's from Sephiroth. I don't understand the first part of this question. If Logan and his 4-foot-tall rooster walked up to Charmer, is he saying I have a big cock? Like, I don't get it. Because no. And walked up to Charmer and said, I have this genie lamp and 2 wishes left. You can have one. What would you each wish for?
Slam wish that I wish Logan doesn't have any wishes left.
What an asshole.
Look, you clearly already spent your first wish. There's 3 wishes, right?
Cock?
You spent your first one on a 4-foot-tall rooster. I can't trust you with another wish. Like, that was your first wish? Stop the count.
Listen. I think the joke here is I asked the genie for a giant cock, and he gave me a 4-foot-tall rooster, which is absolutely I think, the joke. But it's a.
But also, if you asked for that and that's what the genie gave you, I can't trust the genie. Like, I'm saving you, okay? I'm jumping on the grenade. You don't know it yet, but you'll thank me later.
Wow. I don't think that's true, because you're taking away my gambling rights, and nothing hurts me more than taking away my gambling rights. Because that's all that is. That wish is just a gamble. I got to word it correctly, and I'm still rolling bones. Like, I don't know, man.
All right, fine. If I can't take away your wish, I'm going to wish for a 5-foot-tall rooster.
God, just to have a bigger cock than me.
Yep.
What an asshole. Because then I have to wish for a 6-foot-tall one, and then I have 2 fucking roosters. Do you know how shitty that is? That I just have to do it to have 2 roosters now? So I have... because I can't let you have the bigger cock in this. Fuck.
Oh.
I hate getting played by you. Makes me feel inadequate. And that's why I need a 4-foot-tall rooster.
What if I wished that you could only speak in dad jokes, or that you enjoyed them, that you started enjoying them, that you craved them?
I would know exactly what flavor my shotgun is pretty quickly, unless you like wrote it into the language that I didn't realize I was doing it. At which point, you are the biggest asshole on the planet. Yeah. Like the biggest. Ugh. I don't even...
it would be pretty cool to have a 5-foot-tall rooster, though.
Sure. Sure. They don't even lay eggs. Like, you can't even get eggs. Like, you have to feed
but it would piss the neighbors off.
It would piss the neighbors off. There's that. But I like my neighbors. So there's that, too. Like, I like my next-door neighbors.
How very un-American of you.
Shit, sorry.
Now you're sounding Canadian as well.
That's going to get me deported. Wait, that's a strategy. Yes, I love my neighbors. They're wonderful people with rainbow signs in their front yard, and they can feel very welcoming.
I think the border guy, when we were going into Canada, could feel that like I secretly wanted to escape because
that's not much of a secret.
You know, they asked the questions or whatever, so I told him exactly what we were doing, and it's very clear like I'm never going to see this guy again, but he ended with "See you later."
Mm-hmm.
I could just feel my desperation.
You felt called out.
Yeah.
All right. Next one's from Rich, Polish guy Rich. Current news question. You're aware of the salary that a job opening is worth. Would you take a cut from that if the job was your favorite hobby? So I'm assuming the question here is just, would you take the pay cut to take the job in your favorite hobby? This is all in reference to a game dev position that opened up with LSS with some very specific requirements. One of the specific requirement being 2 top 8s at either a pro tour or world championship level, which cut the pool of applicants down, possible applicants down to like 6 people.
That's assuming you follow the whatever, though. Like, right. We all know that job requirements are just a guideline.
They really are. The job paid between $70,000 and $75,000 a year. I don't know if that's an NZD or USD. Either way, it is a pay cut for me. I'm not going to say how much of a pay cut, but it is a pay cut for me.
It would be a big pay cut for me. I'll say that.
I don't want to. I didn't want to say that. But
I mean, I think
I would probably snap it up, but I would snap it up not for working for my favorite hobby. I would snap it up to work in New Zealand and not live in the US.
Yes. And so that's part of the reason that I was giving more information, because I do think that it's an important piece of context for the answer, right? My answer is pretty straightforward. Single me would absolutely take it. Otherwise, I would be a negotiable no. And the reason I say that is because I will always put my family first. And so if that means I, don't get to work my dream job, but I can take care of them, like, I'm going to choose that every time.
Sure.
However, the New Zealand thing is very high on my list. And so my thing is a no, unless I could negotiate my family into saying, hey, like life not be like as great materially, but we'll also be in New Zealand, right? Like,
but everything else is an upgrade.
Single me snaps it in a heartbeat, but unfortunately, adult me with a wife and 2 kids and other responsibilities.
4 kids, or but I don't have that. My only child is a grown ass man, so I think that the cut would the pay cut would be irrelevant to me in that regard, and I would be very happy to jump at the opportunity to go and live and work in New Zealand. I've never been, but I've met enough of the people from there at this point in time that I am sold. The fact that Joshua Scott lives there is enough, quite honestly. But I was I was somewhat interested in trying to like suss out why they would have put those requirements, and I saw some tinfoil hat theories and stuff like that, and I was just like, my first inkling was they have somebody they want to hire. Like, they already have somebody they've been talking to, but they have to, per requirements of maybe New Zealand or somewhere else, they have to actually post the opening on one of the New Zealand job boards, and that's why it exists, right? That's very corporate America in as much as, there are requirements where I work that a job opening is posted, and up until recently that a job opening was posted and you couldn't just like randomly promote somebody. It had to be like, you had to open the position, accept applicants, and then do the interview process. Even though you knew you're going to hire this person for the job, you still had to interview X. And so, it's and I've been in those pools and it sucked because you kind of walk in and they just kind of give you the wink of, we have some very specific qualifications for this job and blah, blah, blah. And you're listening and you're like, really? This is how I'm getting done right now?
Yeah, but and as much as that sucks to be in that situation, I think that's exactly what's happening. But I think that there's a legitimate, like, less scummy reason why they're doing it that way. New Zealand is incredibly hard to immigrate to. And one of the ways that you get through the immigration process is that you essentially prove that a local can't fill the job, which is why you are, going outside the country and having somebody immigrate here and get the visa. Right. So if you post very specific things, you already start with a small applicant pool, and, nobody or very few people natively are fitting the bill. That's just a much easier sell to immigration. That's what I took from it when I saw the posting.
Yeah. And I definitely came away with that feeling after kind of reading a little bit more about New Zealand immigration at that point. And that kind of struck me as, oh, this is what it is, versus something more, scummy is the wrong word, but and New Zealand LSS is not going to waste somebody's time. They're not going to interview a person just, knowing they're going to tell them no.
I don't know. They waste my time every time I play the game because I think I have a chance at winning, and then I never do.
You're wasting your own time.
You're right. That's a me problem.
That's a you
my
problem.
Bad.
I did pull a couple from the vault here. I think we're just going to take one of them because we kind of addressed the other one a little bit. So from the vault, Jim Neban, friend of the show,
Ben.
One of Charmer's locals. Yep, Ben. When Ira LL, so this happened obviously, should she be replaced with a new demo deck, or do the current History Pack 1 Blitz decks fill the introductory role? We have some answers on this. If you guys made a new demo deck for the game, would you pick a new class or stick with Ninja? So again, from the vault. So this is something that has happened. And we also have the First Strike product now, which we didn't have at the point that this was asked. But the First Strike product are not the demo decks. They're the path that is at the Learn to Play booth. Is you start with the demo decks, you move to the First Strike decks. You then can buy a Blitz deck. And then that's kind of the path, right? That's how they teach the game, which makes sense. I think you could do different demo decks. And I think that if you're going to do different demo decks, you would do something similar. So like Olympia would be a good demo deck.
Kano
would not be a good demo deck. That would be fucking awful. No, absolutely not. But like I said, I'd be a big fan of doing like an Olympia demo deck. Olympia is a very simple hero, very easy to understand. I think that would work. But I think Warrior in general would work because, again, sort of weapon focus. You're weapon focused with some attacks. It kind of gives the entire like rundown. I also, you would want whatever the demo deck hero is to be not very wordy at all. Arachne Solitary Confinement is another one that would work. You would just kind of have to populate it with the more generic stealth cards. That's it.
Yeah, maybe. Although, as weird as it sounds, I do think that trying to pitch to somebody who's never like played the game before that stealth is a thing that only matters when it references itself is kind of weird. So I will say I like your idea of Olympia, because when I think about like somebody who maybe has never played a card game before and you're trying to pitch to them what is essentially a fighting game played with cards, what better way to sell that than a literal pit fighter with like, few words going on with many of the interactions,
trying to
right?
earn
like,
gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels very much up that alley when you think about it from that perspective. So
yeah. And wagering is not a complicated thing. It's like, I bet I'm gonna hit you. That's what wagering is. So
yeah.
So yeah, I feel like you could do something like that. I also don't think that the IRA, because of the way that they built the path at the Learn to Play booths, that the IRA decks have been outclassed is like the words that came to mind, but I don't think that's right, have been made obsolete. I still think that they're very good at teaching the mechanics of the game. They're well designed. And so bashing IRA decks is still quite fun. And also a very good way of teaching the game.
So, hear me out though. What if we went with a new class and we made Necromancer, and we also printed it with CNCs that we just hand out to everybody, and Shelters from the Storm, and...
No.
We're
not doing that.
Okay.
We'll have Command and Cowers. So it's a 2 for 6. That
if you on hit you create a cow token.
Yes, on hit you make a bovine token. And you have to milk the bovine token or you lose 3 health because it kicked you. So you have to spend 2 resources to milk it and then destroy it, and then you get a stake token and a milk token. I had something for Command and Cower, and now you just killed it, and I don't know what it was anymore. You just stepped all over it. You stepped on the 4-foot rooster. Congratulations.
You're welcome.
Way to choke the chicken. You see that was good. That worked.
Mm-hmm. And you enjoyed it. My wish is already coming true.
You're an asshole. You're the fucking worst. Platforming you is one of my greatest regrets. Let's thank some patrons and get out of here. We're people, friends, vappers. We keep getting people that are joining Charger's Chamber of Charcoal now.
Mm-hmm. It's the elimination chamber.
It's the elimination chamber. Yeah, it's the elimination chamber at this point. And we got a new member. This month as well. So they're on the quest. So we'll thank our associate producers first. We have Aladoris, Andy, Sindra, Jacob, Quiet Goat, Salty Sea Cat, and Zaris. For our executive producers on up, we have Blazestorm, valued member of the Patreon, Diana, Lance Good Thrust. I missed doing it last weekend. Larry, Micaiah, Poxana, Svintox, Stoop Kid, Philip, Rich, Brandon, Matt, Michael, the Jackal. 6 days away from hitting the magical barrier to become the next guest host. And then after that, it will be Brandon. Then after that, it'll be our newest patron, Oren. So we're loading up the Chamber of Charcoal, baby. And more listener guest hosts coming soon to a podcast near you. Matt, you're apparently a very good guinea pig. So thank you for being such a great sport last week. And doing that fun with us. Yeah, it was a great time. If anybody's interested in joining our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Links in the show notes. There are some number of fucking tiers. Any paid tier gets you into FAP After Darks. We did one a couple weeks ago. We'll have one. I have a hell of a travel schedule this month. So my window would probably be around like the 26th of March, somewhere in that general vicinity. So we'll try to get that on the books, because not too long after that, I leave for London. I leave for Arizona in 8 days from today, 7 days from when this posts, for a week to sit in the sun and watch baseball and be a drunkard. So I will be doing one of these poolside again, which is always my favorite time to do the show, is poolside with the mountains in the background and pissing everybody off. So yeah, if you need to contact the show, you can send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. If you want to contact us on socials, BlueSky, just search Flesh and Pod. Best thing to do, just join our Discord. Links in the show notes. It's free. Just come hang out. There's been a lot of healthy discussion about a lot of different things lately. There's also our Kierkegaard's Corner for all the existential dread that we have been feeling in America and beyond. So if you have any of that and you want to share it, we have a place for that too. There's also a Pickle Posse channel.
There's also a sports and gambling channel, but I think I'm going to start overrunning that with sports entertainment talk.
It's still no, that belongs there.
Yeah,
they make wrestling cards.
I know.
Like Topps cards
mm-hmm.
that have autographs on them. Surprised Stark doesn't bug you to get those.
It has already been a topic of discussion.
Darick, where can they find you?
In the Discord. You do not have to be a patron to join. It is open to the public. So I know it's a lot, card game players, but read the show notes, click the link. If for whatever reason that is too much, then you can find Logan and I on BlueSky. I am at charmer.com on BlueSky, and you can just message me on there, and then I'll send you a link to the Discord that way. Yeah, that's the best way to get in touch with me, is to join the Discord.
Just join the fucking Discord.
Send me a direct message by pinging at IMJORMAN.
That is the best way to do it. You should definitely do that. Well, that's our show this week. Nice and down and dirty. But yeah, what is next week? 171. What do we have? I'm sure we'll figure it out later. Something fucked up will happen. It always does. But until then, we'll talk to you next week. Bye.